Hi, I'm Stacy, and if you're new here, welcome. I'm so glad you found me. I am a homeschooling mom of 7, homesteader, and blogger over at the FromScratchFarmhouse.com, and over the past couple years, I've really enjoyed sharing everything I'm learning here in this space as well. If you're not new here, you've probably noticed that it's been a while since my last video, and so much has happened on our homestead, so I want to give you all of those updates as well as a little business update. And I'm gonna take you along for our cozy Saturday last weekend. We decided it was way too cold to be outside. It was gonna be in the negatives. We're usually up on the mountain skiing, doing things outdoors, but we thought this would be a perfect day for staying indoors and processing meat. So I'm gonna show you our process for making jerky. We made Osso bucco for the first time. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And we also prepped meat for making lunch meat later this week, and I will be documenting that process as well. So I'm gonna give you those updates and then take you along for our cozy Saturday on the homestead. Okay, so first I'm gonna give you the updates, and I guess I should start with explaining why I've been absent on YouTube. I love doing this. I love making these videos for you guys and showing up in this space, but I suffer from chronic illness, or I have for the past 4 years, and that can make things difficult at times. So when I'm not feeling well, it's really hard for me to balance homeschool and homestead and all of the things and all of our goals here on the homestead, as well as document it at the same time. So the good news is I'm feeling really good now, and I'm hoping that I can get back in the swing of things and start making videos weekly again here. I would really love to make a video each week that is more vlog style and just more like chatty and show you our life here on the farm, and then another one that's more of a formal tutorial. But we'll see, that may be a little ambitious, but hopefully that is the goal. Okay, now to the more fun homestead updates. So this past July, we went and got a dairy cow, and that has been amazing. Her name is Jan, and she is very well-natured. She's so good with the kids, and she's producing plenty of milk to keep up with all of our needs, all of our dairy needs. So cheese, yogurt, ice cream, cream, you name it. And that has been such a wonderful change for us, not having to buy those dairy items. In typical us fashion, we were not set up when we brought her home. We didn't have a barn or fencing or a stanchion or anything, but we were determined to not let our procrastination get us to a point of not moving forward. And I knew that once we brought home the cow, all those things would happen. Probably not the best advice to go handing out, but I will say it works for us. So we brought home Jan. Then we built the fence and the stanchion and a little barn to get us by, and it has been going amazingly. Since we brought home Jan, I've been doing a ton of cheese making and experimenting. I have found the perfect ice cream recipe that I absolutely love, and so I'm really excited to be sharing all of those recipes in upcoming videos. Also, we brought home one milk cow and decided that was a really bad idea. Cows like to be together, they're herd animals. We knew that and had intentions of getting more cows, but we didn't realize how soon that would have to happen. So Jan was bellowing late at night, early in the morning, waking us up, and because her fence is not very far away, we had company coming, and I was so nervous that she was gonna wake up our company. So we went and got a calf from a local dairy, brought the calf home and put it with her, and it was love at first sight for her. They bonded immediately. She just took in that calf like it was her own. The downside of that is that calf did start nursing on her, so we did have to put a nose ring on the calf, and just so that we could get our milk. And then we were then milking her out and giving some of that milk to the calf anyway, but just so that she wouldn't drain her. And that has been so amazing. They've had each other, and we've really enjoyed the joy of raising a calf. Spot is a meat breed, not a milk cow, so our intention is to raise her just as a beef mom. I think we become too attached to make her hamburger, but we'll just see how it goes. Her Angus personality might make us change our minds as she gets older. Whew, this fire's getting a little hot, so if I'm a little pink, that's why. So fast forward, we have 2 cows and no barn. So we decided we're going to build a barn before winter. Well, we didn't really get started on this until late summer, and winter this year came very early and very harsh. So we had snow on the ground before we normally do, and it was just impossible to move forward. Thankfully, we love the snow, and it means many days spent skiing and enjoying the outdoors, but it has created some new difficulties, such as the fact that our 4-foot fences are now only a few inches above the ground. So we're gonna have to put some fence extensions on those T-posts in order to put up more fencing before the cows realize they can just leave. So we put a halt to that project, built a more sound temporary barn. It's still not wonderful, but it does the job, and we can milk in there, and they have some protection from the elements. And then hopefully this summer we will finally finish that barn. This fall we once again butchered 50 meat birds, a few turkeys and ducks, hunted for venison, and hit our goal of preserving a year's worth of food. So that's meat we raised or hunted, veggies we preserved or stored in our cellar from the winter, fruit we picked and froze or canned, and then staples like rice, sugar, and wheat berries that we bought in bulk in the fall and stored in our cellar. We also stocked up on a year's worth of supplies like toilet paper and paper products, and we did all this with the goal of staying out of the grocery store as much as possible. I'm gonna have to create a whole video on this because I know it's gonna lead to a lot of questions, but we've learned a lot trying to chase that goal of staying out of the grocery store and having a year's worth of food in our home. So I'm gonna share that as soon as possible. After we got through that busy time of the preserving season and then the holidays, it was time to take a breath. I spent some of this time off social media and just really looking at ways to get rid of some overwhelm I was feeling. And the best thing that came from that was doing a major simplify and organization session. I cannot tell you how good it feels to know everything has a place. I'm not saying it always ends up in that place, but now when we clean up, it's quicker, more efficient, and way less overwhelming. When I came back from my social media break and told people what I had done, many said they wanted to do the same thing, but didn't really know where to start. So I wrote down my exact process and compiled it into a course. Which brings me to my last update, and that is I am launching a membership. I am so excited. The first module in this membership is going to be that course that I just talked about. It's called the Homestead Reset, and it teaches you to organize and simplify your home and your life and your finances so that you will finally have the time and the money to focus on those homesteading goals. I've documented my processes for coming up with more simplified home and life, and I'm so excited to share those with you. Also, each month in that membership are going to be more tutorials and just hand-holding to help you achieve those homesteading goals of yours. I'm going to provide you a clear path towards ditching the grocery store and becoming more self-sufficient, as well as share with you our favorite family recipes, to-do list. I've got it all. I'm not going to give an exact date that I'm launching it because I still have a few things I need to finish up, but it will be soon, and I will leave a link in the description in case you wanted to go check out more information. Okay, I think that's all for updates. Now I gotta get away from this fire because I think it's gonna burn a hole in my shirt, but here is what we did this weekend. So if you're new here and curious what we consider too cold to have fun outside, it was in the negatives in Fahrenheit this weekend. I think the real feel was around -20, -25. So yes, it was gorgeous out and our kiddos did bundle up for a while and go out, but us adults at least figured it was a great day to get some meat processing done inside. Our big project for the day was jerky, and we do things quite a bit different than we used to. In the past, we sliced strips of venison and then marinated and cooked that actually in an oven back then. And it was fine, but the reason we made the switch was the texture. Jerky made with ground meat is so much more tender. It doesn't make your jaw hurt to eat it, and the way the flavor is able to penetrate the meat is just so much better in my opinion. It also allows you to use different cuts of meat that maybe wouldn't slice well if you were doing that method. The process is actually very simple, but I will admit that our equipment is what makes it a breeze. Don't worry if you aren't ready to commit to buying all of this equipment yet though. Really, the only thing I would say that you need is a jerky gun. I suppose you could rig something up, but the jerky gun just makes the process so efficient. So we started by grinding our meat. If you don't have a meat grinder, just start with pre-ground meat. We process our deer ourselves, so this grinder that we're using from Made with Meat has been a great investment, and I will link it below. The one tip I have here is to not thaw the meat completely before grinding it. It works better actually if it's still partially frozen. Not hard, you should still be able to break it apart, but not completely thawed and losing all of its juices either. After it was ground the first time, we swapped out the disc to a finer grind and repeated the process. So now we have nice, finely ground venison with no chunks left. Then we made our curing marinade. I'll link our recipe below. It includes curing salt, seasonings, and sauces, and as long as you have the right ratio of curing salt to meat, feel free to play with the seasonings to make it a flavor your family will love, especially when it comes to the spice level. Make sure this gets blended together very well. We are doing a very large batch here, but you can adjust the ingredients to suit how much meat you have. Then we mix the ground meat with the curing marinade. These plastic bins that we are using come in so handy for meat processing. not just for this project, but for everything. After we mixed it in a little by hand, we put the meat into our mixer that is made for this purpose and poured in the rest of the marinade. Of course, you can totally do this by hand as well. We love the mixer partly because the meat is so cold to mix by hand, and if you have a lot of it to do, the mixer will save your hands. Once it is mixed together well, it got put in a bowl, covered, and refrigerated for around 4 hours. It can go longer too, overnight is fine. In fact, I think we started our first batch 4 hours after refrigerating it, but we continued doing more batches into the next day. After it had the chance to marinate, we filled our jerky gun to make strips on our dehydrator trays. Our jerky gun is also from Made with Meat. This is not sponsored, we just love their brand. And then we have an Excalibur dehydrator. We have had it for a few years now and I absolutely love it. I use it for everything from proofing bread to drying herbs to making jerky. I will link it below as well. So once the trays were loaded, we set our dehydrator to the jerky setting, which is 165 degrees Fahrenheit, and then let it go for about 4 to 6 hours. I would say to start testing it at 4 hours, but ours was done at about 5. In order to know that it is done, try snapping it. It should bend a little and then break. If it breaks right away, it's too dry. If it folds in half and doesn't break at all, it's not done. You also want to make sure it has come to a safe temperature internally. There is some debate on what this safe temperature is, so I'm going to refer you to Google for that one. The first batch we made, we did these flat strips using the flat end of our jerky gun. The next batch we did round sticks, and honestly they were both amazing, but we decided we really loved how nicely the round sticks cooked. They were not super dry and yet dry enough to be done, and overall the texture was much more tender, which is a quality I like. I'm not into chewy jerky, but I know that that is the point for some people, so pick your favorite. Finally, when all this was done, we used a vacuum sealer to seal the bags, and I know I've been singing the praises of this brand, but a benefit of this not being a sponsored video is that I can honestly tell you I do not recommend this model of their vacuum sealer. Our first one wasn't sealing well, so their amazing customer service sent us a replacement with no questions asked. Unfortunately, however, we've been having similar issues with this one, so we still love their brand and all of the other items we've ever got from them, but I just can't recommend this particular product. So that's it for jerky. It's so easy, and now we have homemade snacks for a long time. We will keep what we won't eat this week in the freezer. All right, now I have to quickly show you what we made for dinner that night. My husband has been wanting to make osso bucco. Osso bucco is made with a beef, or venison in our case, shanks, and it literally means whole of bone because the bone marrow is what gives the sauce its wonderful flavor, not to mention all the health benefits of eating bone marrow. It is fairly easy to make in a Dutch oven. I'll leave the recipe in the description and just give you a quick tutorial here. First, we preheated our oven to 300 degrees. Then we fried up our bacon, removing the cooked bacon pieces and setting them aside. Next, we browned all of the sides of the venison shanks in the Dutch oven. Then we chopped up our veggies and prepped our other ingredients. As the shanks were browning, we seasoned them. Traeger seasoning mixes are a favorite in our home, but just use what you have. When those were browned, we removed them and set them aside. Then we added in our onion to the Dutch oven and sauteed until it began to caramelize. Next, we mixed in the garlic and banana peppers and sauteed those for a few minutes. We added a splash of the banana pepper juice for an extra kick. Then we poured about half of the broth into the pan and mixed to combine with the veggies. Then we added back in the bacon and the shanks, bone side up, and covered them in all the goodies. Next, we tossed in the bay leaves, the rest of the broth, and a splash of balsamic vinegar. We made sure everything was evenly distributed in the pan, put on the lid, and then put it in our preheated oven. We set a timer for 3 hours, and when it went off, it was time to add in the other veggies. Then it got covered again and put back in for 1 more hour. When the timer went off this time, it was so tender and delicious. Remove the bay leaves and serve it over mashed potatoes. Also, don't miss out on any marrow left in the bone. That day, we also prepped some meat for making homemade venison lunch meat, and I will share that in a future video. Thank you so much for joining me here. I hope you found it helpful. I make videos on homesteading, homeschooling, food from scratch, and creating a handmade home, so if any of those are topics of interest, make sure to hit subscribe, and I'll see you here next week.